Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris Riley with System Source. Thanks so much for taking the middle of your day and joining us to learn about stopping email attacks. So as IT security is always a hot topic, and you know from our events and just our practice is that we hit it from a lot of different directions because that's the way you have to hit IT security to prevent breaches. So today we'll be focusing primarily on email types of attacks, as well as how do you, including how do you back up to make sure that that you have that as well in place for email. So we'll and also be taking a look at what kinds of things are making it through whatever current defenses that you might have in place, and most importantly, give you a tool so that you can kind of assess that. So we'll look for being able to help kind of surface those invisible threats to understand, so that you can understand what is in my environment, so that you'll understand what's made it through and what you need to be able to address. I'm joined today by Dave Ferg, who's one of our senior consultants, also Scott Rabba, who's with Barracuda as a solutions architect for them. So they'll be doing the presentation, Dave, starting with Dave and then with Scott. So let's kind of jump in. So Dave will be kind of doing a review for as what we kind of call a consultant's view from the trenches, because Dave does implementation types of work and remediation, other types of security-related work. So he's seeing the things that are causing problems for clients that they need to call us to be able to help mitigate. So he can kind of give you an idea for what are the kinds of threats that are coming, that our clients are seeing, what's kind of happening with that. And then Scott will be then taking a look at, well, how do we kind of stop those things for looking for gaps, looking at tools that you could use, looking at those types of things. So that'll be Scott in the second half of that. All right, just a little bit of housekeeping here. So hopefully you're enjoying the pizza and that it's a good one. So if the pizza has not made it there to you in the next few minutes, you may want to just jot Julie Dellinger's email address down. Email her; she'll try to help sort things out for you. But do give them a couple minutes. They may be trying to find your address, or coming up the elevator if you're at your office building. During the webinar, the audio is in presentation mode, so you'll be able to hear us, but we can't hear you, unfortunately. But we do that so that any noise where participants maybe don't come through the whole group. But you can reach me through the chat throughout today's session, as well as put any questions that come to mind. Just drop them into the questions tab, and then I'll read out those questions to Dave or to Scott at the end of the presentation portion, so they can make sure that they answer your questions. We take seriously that this is an educational session and want to make sure that you get what you came for. This presentation and the recording of it will also be made available to you later today. You'll see that in your email, so you don't have to write furiously. And there'll also be a short evaluation, short meeting, like takes about a minute. You'll let us know how we did today. So that helps us improve, make these better, as well as there's some options there for other things that you might find to be additional resources, including one of the things will be, if you're interested in, we can send you the information for the tool that can kind of check to see what things have made it through your current defenses. And Scott will be talking more about that today. We do try to make it fun for completing the evaluation by doing some drawings from a couple of completed ones, and you can get an Amazon gift card or your favorite restaurant card, each for $50, just try to make it a little bit more fun for you. We do have a lot of new comers today in the group. Welcome. So System Source, just to give you just a level set a little bit, we've been around since 1981. There's about 70 of us, and we work with IT professionals from kind of South Central Pennsylvania all the way down into DC and throughout Maryland. So most of our work happens in that modern data center. So one of the places that people will tend to first come is when they need to acquire new technology. While we do end user computing, most of our work is happening in the data center, whether that's the traditional on-prem or it's going to be in all the various cloud varieties of that. That could be in Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services. It could also be because you've hosted servers either in your facilities or in hosting facilities. So that those could be anywhere or software as a service. So wherever the modern data center lives, which could be in any or all of those places, we do our work there. So we're kind of agnostic as to where it goes, as long as it kind of makes sense. And so we're working with storage solutions, storage, compute, all the security-related services, virtualization, wireless, and kind of list goes on for designing solutions that kind of make the data center go and secures it today. But people acquire because they want to improve. So we've talked a little bit about the cloud services and the consulting where Dave's a part of, and he and his colleagues there. But people also come to train to learn better how to use it. And so we have about 36 different course areas and technologies and manufacturers things, areas that we do training on in about the 600 plus courses that we offer at any one point. And those are all available remotely. Present is code word for professional AV. So think digital signage, all the large monitors, speakers, microphones that you see in conference centers, executive offices, presentation areas, auditoriums, etc. That's the type of work that we're doing there. So Teams rooms, WebEx rooms, Zoom rooms, etc. And finally, at the bottom where we maintain everything, either you call us when things go bump in the night or bump in the day. Under service and support on a reactive model, we respond as you call, or proactive model, managed services, where we are the IT department for dozens of organizations in this region. So that's a little bit about System Source today. A few upcoming webinars you may wish to consider, and I'll drop these into the chat as well if you want to just click on those. So one is going to be on security predictions. So looking ahead at 25, this is done in conjunction with Arctic Wolf. So they have Arctic Wolf Labs, where they analyze the data that they get from managing security operations for literally thousands upon thousands of clients to see what are they seeing, and let's get the predictions from that so that you can design what in your shop what you need to protect yourself. That's coming up on the 19th. On the 21st, we'll be looking at new storage technologies, and then on the 26th, looking at key metrics for proactively managing your IT operations. I'll drop those in the chat as well. With that, let me go ahead and hand the reins over to Dave to start us off. Dave?
Thank you, Chris, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully, we're going to give you something that will make your work more secure, because we're talking about security. So let me say it that way. My portion of this webinar will be to talk about what we have seen in our practices, because we do have a managed services practice. So we see the daily activity of what emails, hygiene tools are catching, what might be getting through, etc. And when I'm done talking about what's out there and what the issues are, Scott will then pick up the presentation talking about what Barracuda offers us. So basically, what my portion is to talk about threats, so I guess I'm here to scare you in some way, shape, or form. So good thing you don't also have a camera on this. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about threats, and specifically, we're going to be talking about email threats today. Now, email is a very established technology. It's a routine tool that we use throughout the day. It's not our primary job. It's a secondary tool to what it is we're doing. And it's something that most of us have had our entire career has been working in email. So we tend to sometimes forget or give very little thought to the dangers that are out there. We just use the tool to go about our day. And the hackers out there are going to rely on the fact that we are distracted to gain access to the system. They are going to pump our system full of crap. And if we didn't have any filters, it would be all showing up in our email box, and we would, in our busyness, we will just start clicking things. So that's what they're relying on. So what I'm going to be talking about in the next couple minutes is the different types of attacks that can be showing up in your mailboxes. I just want you to keep in mind as I'm doing this, and I'll probably say it a couple times as we go through. Your users are busy. Your users are distracted. Their primary job is to not check every email's characteristics to know whether it is malicious or whether it is good. They're going to do their work. We need tools to keep those malicious emails from getting into their system. I will also note, though, that some things get through because they just look so very correct, and your users also will need to be trained to be alert to the types of things. They can't be just casual about their email. So I'm going to be talking about different types of attacks. So basically what you're going to hear is a bunch of names, a bunch of labels to different types of attacks. And they're going to sound like they overlap a lot or doing maybe similar things. And part of that is because attacks that come to us aren't using just one or two of these techniques. They're coming in from with many of these techniques, little vectors, if you will, so that maybe something in that email catches us. So when we talk about spam or we talk about phishing, well, phishing will have an aspect of scamming, and scamming will have an aspect of possibly conversation hacking and things like that. So these are just general labels. Just keep that in mind that your world will be a mix of these things coming in. The information I'm pulling is coming from a Barracuda ebook. And since you will be given this presentation, I have the URL for you to go get this for yourself. I'm going to use this as a guide to talk about the different threats. Again, I'm going to mention that as a managed service company, we see this every time. I mean, every day. This is an everyday occurrence for us. These attacks are real. We have had issues where we've had to go in and clean up from some of these things because people did click on things. So even though I'm going to be talking about older technologies like spam that has been around since the dawn of time, it still works. Spam is that unsolicited bulk email message. Can be used to do anything from collecting email addresses from you, that if you reply or click or show or do something in it, it has validated your email, that it can now be sold to other spammers. Could also be used to be pushing scams and email frauds into your systems. It seems like this is something, this is old, we don't need to worry about it, but it's still a valuable weapon, if you will, for the hackers. 53% of our emails are spam. And why is that? Because it's still profitable. They're still making money off of these things. So don't minimize just a general spam attack, because inside that spam could be anything from malware to phishing attacks, things like that. It's still profitable. The fact that everything I'm going to talk about in my portion of this presentation, everything I'm going to talk about is still a valid attack and is a good attack because it's still making somebody money. That tells you that somebody is clicking. Some people are going to click. If it gets to their inbox, people will click it. You may not click it because you're maybe more trained, but someone in your organization is busy and are just going to click things. So malware is a form of email threat that we need to protect against. This is where you're going to be sent some kind of file that you're going to open, and that file is not just the spreadsheet as you see in this little picture here. It is, it may be a spreadsheet, but it's also going to bring with it some nasty things that might be putting some software on your PC to do surveillance, to make changes, to make the attack itself, whatever. So we need to protect ourselves from software getting into our world, from which it then can move laterally by not clicking things we are not aware of. Or we need tools, better yet, we need tools that prevent these things from getting into our system, that have been, the attachments are tested first and then sent down to us. Malware can be sent en masse and just blasted out to people, much like a spam, because there are older systems, there are unpatched systems, and people are just busy. So, just your standard low-hanging fruit attack, if you will. Zero-day attacks are becoming more common now that we have more technologies and more tools to customize things, AI being one. These are a little trickier, and here's where you really need some good tools to go find things that are not matching signatures, but are just not quite right. And so we're going to try to catch them that way. 94% of malware is delivered via email. That's how it's going to get into your system. Yes, people can download it from the web, but most of it's going to come through email. And ransomware is one of the most popular forms of that. And so that's a business stopper if you're not ready for it. In 2019, ransomware cost about $170 billion. That's a fairly dated statistic, but it's more today. So these things are profitable, and so they're going to keep coming your way. Phishing. That seems to be on everybody's mind right now, because phishing is a form of impersonation. It's trying to get into your organization by pretending to be a part of your organization many times. And there's different little sub-labels to this. Spear phishing is one of them, where it's attacking not everybody in your organization, but maybe some specific people, trying to gain access to resources, sensitive information, etc. Another subcategory of this is whale phishing, which is a form of spear phishing, but it's attacking your senior folk that actually have the authority to release funds, the authority to release data, etc. So these are the folks that have that, if compromised, can be very damaging to the business. So you need to be protecting those. URL phishing, where we're not doing it within the email, but we're doing it within maybe a link within an email that you're going to click. Because if they can get you to click the email, you're already in the mode of starting to give information. You've gone to wherever it is. You've already started down the path. The likelihood of somebody already starting down the path, continuing down the path, is greater. So that's becoming a little popular now as well. So you need to protect yourself against the spear fishes, the higher level people that have authorities, and URL protections. Phishing is still and continues to be one of the more common forms of cybercrime. One of the reasons it's one of the most common is it's actually going after people. If it can get through your protections and get into people's mailboxes, now it's more of a social engineering attack that's going on, and now your users are your last link of defense, and generally your weaker link, because again, they're going to be more distracted doing what they're doing and may not always be paying all the attention they need to. 36% of all data breaches involved and started with a phishing attack. So this is where they've actually got a hold and access to your data itself. 65% of cybercrime, besides just getting access to your data, maybe blocking access or reconnaissance and things like that, started through a phishing attack. 88% of organizations have had spear phishing attacks in their businesses. We're not immune. Large companies or small companies, the hackers don't care necessarily. They're just trying things and shooting it out. So we're all vulnerable to these attacks. Scamming. Those too good to be true emails of job postings and investment opportunities, etc. They're still out there, still working. They work because okay, let me use fake jobs as an example. If you are looking for a job and an email comes through with job postings on it, your interest is already piqued. And because you are already interested in that, you're more likely to convince yourself that that email is a legit email from a legit sender, a legit vendor, etc. We can tell ourselves, even though there's some red flags, it's of interest to us. So we click and we go on. All right. This one here, for instance, that middle paragraph, I wish to let you know that I have received your address where to deliver your ATM card. As reconfirmed, please below, please kindly provide your valid information, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you have a user in your organization that's in need of money, something like this, with all its red flags, may jump up and say, well, just maybe, and users click. That's just the thing. Users click. So we need to find ways of keeping it out of the inbox and then train the users to have it only deal with what actually makes it into the inbox. Scamming accounts for about 39% of all spear phishing attacks. They're trying to scam somebody in that spear phishing attack. And if you look at this outlook graphic here, the areas in which monies can be made by these hackers in the romance, the investment, the lottery, the employment area, these are not work-related things. These are social things that have people's interests, where their concerns are, where their fears are sometimes. They are already predisposed to go down passages that talk about these things. So if you don't keep them out of the inbox, all the training in the world sometimes makes it difficult for people to not just convince themselves they're dealing with something that's okay. Impersonation as a form of attack. This is where a domain will through a typo, if you will, or typo squatting, will try to look like the legitimate domain. So they'll add an E, they'll change a letter from E to A, they'll drop a letter or something like that. And users in their business would just see like the BARR and just assume the rest of it and move on, and maybe not recognize there's a typo that's going someplace it shouldn't, or has come from someplace it shouldn't. Or instead of barracuda.com, it's barracuda.co, and that's all their mind processes, and then they move on. So we got to keep these things away from your users so they don't, in their hurriedness and distractedness, click them through and start going to places and downloading things they shouldn't be doing in your environment. A Barracuda analysis has shown that there has been a 400% increase in domain impersonation attacks. And the only thing that explains a 400% increase is the fact is that it works. So we do need to protect ourselves against something like that. Brand interpretation. This is where they're going to put something about a brand in there. Now, in this little example here, you see the word Amazon. Well, the icon looks right. Now I'm less likely to read the domain name to see if it came from Amazon.com or some form of that name, because I'm going to rely on that graphic and not be checking everything. So we need to be protecting these things from coming into our environment, because the images will convince people that it's a legitimate email. Companies that have a preponderance of these attacks, notice at the top of this list here, and this one I'm showing, is Microsoft, because we're on our Microsoft Windows, talking to our Microsoft Windows servers, talking to our Microsoft 365 services. We trust Microsoft because we're on Microsoft. And when you see the graphics of Microsoft, this brand interpretation, this brand impersonation going on, we're liable to just kind of click through just because the image has done something. So again, because the image is correct, people are less likely to actually look at from addresses and other little clues that may be in the email. Again, you need to keep these things out of inboxes. This is a tough one. Conversation hijacking. This is where cyber criminals are trying to insert themselves into your conversations. This is where users' defenses will be down. If they're actually able to insert themselves into an existing conversation, you send an email to somebody, they reply, your mind now is not, your defenses aren't up. You're just in the conversation and working. So we need to be able to prevent these things. Through good reconnaissance, and with AI now, it makes it even harder. They can be monitoring your email traffic and initiate new conversations that mimic what you do now with the tone of the conversation and who talks to who. So it all sounds like it's proper internal communications going on. So again, you need to be protecting yourself from these things getting in, because users' defenses will be down in these types of scenarios. This is generally part of some kind of an account takeover and attack. And generally the compromised account is not the one being used to do the scamming that's on here, because that's their reconnaissance. They're going to use reconnaissance to use other names to try to make attacks with. So if you're seeing these things in your organization, there's probably a compromised account someplace in your environment. Business email compromise. This is, again, much like the conversation hijacking in its intent. It's more of an internal. It's an impersonating an employee in order to defraud the company itself. It's focusing on trying to get personal information because it's coming from your manager. It's coming from HR or something like that. So they're going to try to compromise your business by acting as your business. And you may be seeing this thing as, CEO fraud or wire transfer fraud. There's other names for these things going on, but these are internal attacks. So I'm about to round up my portion of it here. So let me just say there's a lot of things I haven't talked about. I will tell you again, these are things we see as we manage clients' systems. If you want more information about these things, again, I'm going to refer you back to that ebook that kind of walks a little more information about what each of these types of attacks are. Things we haven't talked about is generally AI. I mentioned it briefly, but there's AI generated attacks. There's data exfiltration, where they're actually taking your data and keeping it themselves. There is extortion attacks that goes on. There are lateral phishing attacks that can go on, and many, many more. So here's the thing. I've said this before. I'm going to just say it one more time here. We need to train our users. They need to be intelligent email users. In the MFA world, there's a problem where people get so tired of just hitting yes to accepting MFA prompts, they don't even look to what it is they're saying yes to. There's a fatigue there. Well, that fatigue happens in email as well. So you need to train your users. But you also need, hand in hand with that, protection to keep these things from getting into your mailboxes. Because if we're not protecting our emails, both inbound and outbound, our company's reputation is at risk, and a lot of money. These things are happening because they're making money. So these will continue to come. Your defenses just need to get better and better. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve and let him talk about how Barracuda can put up some defenses for us. There you go, Steve.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. And doing a little switcheroo here. Just give us a second to get the screen shared and we'll get going. I am not seeing the share screen button here. A little technical difficulty. There we go. Awesome. So we're gonna there we go. So as appreciate that, Dave, and as Dave said, email is still very much a lucrative and relatively easy way to get into organizations and create havoc. And so it's not just understanding what you need to do to stop this. Part of it can be, hey, what do I have that's currently sitting in my Microsoft 365 inboxes? I have something in place. I'm leveraging Microsoft Defender, or I'm using another gateway solution, but how do I know what's getting past those defenses and into my mailboxes? And the theme here is email attacks are continuing to get dangerous. Just a few stats I pulled recently where just in second half of 2024, over a 200% increase in email-based threats. And that's just 6 months. And if you look at the annual cost of cybercrime for this year, they're estimating it to hit 10.5 trillion. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of zeros. And I was actually listening to a video yesterday, and these guys were talking about what's the difference between a million, a billion, and a trillion. And they were talking about if you got $1 a day, you get a million, and I think it was like a certain amount of years. If you did it a billion, it was 31 years. If you did a trillion, it's 31,000 years. So think about that when you look at that number of $10.5 trillion. That is a lot of money. And again, 88% of emails are using some impersonation as a tactic, whether that's employee impersonation, service impersonations. It is continuing to be used as a method to foil the users and get them to respond, click on, do something they wouldn't otherwise do. Dave did a great job talking a little bit about these 13 email threat types, all the way from the more volumetric nuisance spam emails, all the way up to the more sophisticated, targeted types of attacks, leveraging extortion, conversation hijacking, lateral phishing. And the idea is how can we find out which of these types of emails are sneaking past and are sitting in a user's mailboxes? And we actually have a great tool that can be leveraged to help you see where the gaps are in email security, what we would have caught, so a proof of value right out of the gate, and it'll generate a report that shows you this. And so it's called our email threat scanner. The nice thing about this tool is, again, not only is it free, but it doesn't require any MX records changes, doesn't require any configurations. It is an API connection into your Microsoft tenant, and it will do a 12-month look back over your historical email. And it's doing several things. One of them is it is really bootstrapping and learning the unique communication patterns of your organization. So it's really creating a fingerprint of how your users leverage their email, who they talk to, how they sign their emails, the linguistic patterns of their emails, where they sign in, the inbox rules they have. And so it's learning that so it can understand then what is anomalous behavior. And so then the report will generate, the report's generated is going to show you the potential email threats that are still sitting in the user's mailboxes. So we're going to be looking for those types of emails, the spear phishings, the URL phishings, the scammings, the blackmail, service impersonations. We're looking for those. The report is going to show you those emails that are still hanging around and can still be interacted with and cause a problem for your organization. It's also going to show you what is your DMARC status or who are the most targeted individuals in your organization. So it's a really great report that even just in that information right there is great. But also bear in mind the engine that's behind the AI machine learning that's behind that tool is the same AI machine learning that is behind our impersonation protection product. And so that report is also showing you what this product would have caught if it had been in place. Now, bear in mind the email gateway as a tool is still a valuable tool. It's what Barracuda got started with over 20 years ago, physical appliances that were deployed into your environment to filter mail. We no longer sell the physical appliances. We do have the SaaS-based, cloud-based email gateway defense, but the gateway is still very good at catching the volumetric attacks, the spams, the malwares, the 0 days. We're going to check attachments. We're going to link checking, but because of the sophistication that is now prevalent in email attacks, long gone are the days of just being able to identify suspicious emails by grammar or spelling or overall tone. And so it's required going a level deeper. The gateway is going to miss some of those things. And so we want to now get down to the inbox level. And this is where our API approach comes into play. We're now going to tap directly into Microsoft 365. So we're absolutely still looking at the gateway for those volumetric attacks, using rules and policies to allow block or quarantine messages. But now for those emails that are using social engineering tactics to evade the gateway, some of which Dave showed in his examples, we're now going to tap in directly to the inbox. So when those sneak by, at the inbox level, we are seeing those emails. We are comparing it against the Graph API of Microsoft. We're doing natural language processing. A lot of these different things are occurring in near real time, so that email is now identified as suspicious. We can take action on it by deleting it or moving it to the user's junk folder. And that's really where Barracuda went about 8-9 years ago when we rolled out this product as the first product leveraging an AI technology, as well as the first product purpose-built for Microsoft 365. And this has been a game changer. There's a lot of other solutions out there that you're now seeing that are coming to market with AI using this API approach, the abnormals, the checkpoints. I think even Proofpoint has started to roll out something on the AI side. But this is really the next level of email security, is leveraging the gateway to catch the obvious stuff, and then using this API-based inbox defense to catch the more sophisticated attacks. And again, as I mentioned, we're understanding abnormal behavior based on an identity graph. This is Microsoft's graph. Microsoft has a fingerprint of all of your users. It understands all of this information around your users. And so we're simply tapping into that and using our AI machine learning to leverage what Microsoft is already doing to then say, hey, look, let's take action on this. Even though Microsoft has this, they're not leveraging it from an AI perspective. So again, we're not replacing Microsoft. We're simply coming in and filling that gap that is there with your current solutions. Well, again, whether it's Microsoft or some other gateway solution. Now, again, kind of to just kind of hammer home the idea here with some more examples is, we talked about impersonation techniques. Here's a great example of a business email compromise. High reputation sender, there's no links, there's no attachments, there's nothing necessarily in this email that says, hey, I'm malicious, I'm suspicious, don't interact. Plain text, but a sense of urgency coming usually from somebody that's in a position of authority or an executive. It looks legitimate. They'll put the to address up here, but then they'll do the reply to will mimic who it's coming from. Again, all techniques designed to get the average user who, as we all know, we get tons of emails on a daily basis, and all it takes is just a quick oversight. You interact with this email, next thing you know, this wire transfer goes out. So again, this is where impersonation protection is coming in and taking action on that email before the user ever has a chance to interact with it. This is what we consider a scary one. And again, Dave mentioned this, conversation hijacks, where there is legitimate communication going on between you and a vendor, and something happens. It could be that vendor's compromised, whatever it may be, but a bad actor will register a domain that looks very similar. And as Dave did a great job of showing, it's one letter right here. It could be adding a letter, removing a letter, it could be changing a letter. And I would ask the question, how many of you trust your users in the daily workday with emails flying around and receiving an email that has the email chain in the email itself would take the time to notice the move shift from an E to an A. Odds are not many people are going to catch that right out the gate. And so now this email has gotten through. It's a domain that's usually been created the day of or day before. But that's what impersonation protection is designed to do, is to say, hold up, we've seen you communicating with this known good domain. Now all of a sudden we see this domain that is a little bit different and it's newly created. Something's not right here. This could be part of a conversation hijack. And again, taking action on that email before a user ever has a chance to interact. And again, this is what the email threat scan is going to reveal if any of these are hanging around. It's also showing you what impersonation protection will catch if it's in place. Now, again, I mentioned free email threat scan. Shows you threats that have already been bypassed. There is a link that you'll have in the deck that will allow you to run this scan. It'll take probably about 90 seconds to 2 minutes to set up. It's simply logging in with your global admin credentials. It's accepting the permissions for that API connection and then let it run. Usually the scans will finish within about 6 to 8 hours, but definitely will not take more than 24 hours. It's a fairly quick turnaround. And it's read-only. It's not going to make any changes to your environment. It is purely a read-only informational product, but it does give you the opportunity once it's finished, you can actually turn that scan into a free trial of impersonation protection. So again, this link will be, you'll be able to click on this link and run that scan. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to everybody at System Source. They can help you out. And if they have any issues, that's where I would definitely step in and come alongside you as well. Now, bear in mind when it comes to email security, and Dave touched on this, I want to revisit this, is that even with security solutions in place, there is nothing that is infallible or is going to catch everything. There is going to be email threats that sneak by. That's just the nature of the beast. It's kind of like Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. We're always going into the Acme toolbox to not only train our classifiers, but retrain them, build them based on new threats that we're seeing, emerging threats in various locations or industries. So that's where training your users is paramount. And I actually, interestingly enough, I read an article recently that said last year that users were 3 times more likely over the previous year to click on a link in spite of being trained. And as I kind of read that article, what really hit me is that oftentimes training is done once a year, twice a year, just something to check the box to keep the cybersecurity insurance premiums down. It has to be regular and ongoing. It has to be consistent because the email security landscape changes so fast. And now with AI, as much as we use AI to catch bad emails, bad actors are now using AI. AI is everywhere. There are large language models everywhere, DeepSeek, ChatGPT, we could go on and on. And bad actors are using those to not only craft very good looking emails, but they're also able to attack at a larger scale than what has been available before. So it is important that that your organization is routinely and ongoing training your users to spot suspicious emails, to then report those emails so that they're not interacting with them. Because as we all know, it only takes one email to cause a problem for your organization. But let's just say something happens. Let's just say an email is clicked on and data is corrupted in your Microsoft 365 environment, OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange, Teams. Well, that's where backup is so important. I always, when I'm talking about backup, it's like your security blanket. It's the hope I never have to use it, but if I do, at least I know the data is there to recover. And in fact, Microsoft still in their service agreement is recommending that you use a third-party tool to back up their data. They do not guarantee the recoverability of their data in the event that it is accidentally or maliciously deleted. If it's ransomware, if it's encrypted, they do not guarantee the recoverability of that data. There is the 30-day recycle ban, and then there's kind of the extended recycle ban. I think you can actually pay for up to 90 days. But the reality of it is that having a backup and knowing how to get to that data very quickly and effectively to restore from a known good date and time is paramount, especially if, as a business, if there's mission critical information or data that is in those environments, your OneDrive or SharePoint Exchange, that you would need to have for your business to run on a regular basis. And so that's where our cloud backup solution comes into play. It is an unlimited storage, unlimited retention tool. It's going to back up Exchange. It's going to back up OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, and we just last September rolled out an additional piece with Entra ID. Now, we're not backing up everything in Entra. Currently, we're going to be backing up users, groups, roles, and admin units, but it is included in your cloud-to-cloud backup subscription. So it's an additional value add where if an organization, something happens where maybe someone gets into their Entra environment, which 9 out of 10 attacks that target Microsoft are also targeting Entra. Account creation, privilege escalation, whatever they can do to kind of get in and then move around. So having a backup that in case something does happen to your Entra environment, you can recover is important. We are looking to roll out an additional tier down the road for more of your power Entra users, things like BitLocker keys, Intune policies, app registrations, but that'll be coming down later probably in the next 3 to 4 months. But the backup is, again, another API connection into your Microsoft tenant. Probably takes another 90 seconds to a couple minutes to get started. It runs a full backup of that data. And then once that's done, it schedules daily incremental backups for that data. And you'll have a dashboard that you can log into. You can review that data. You can restore data back to its original location or to an alternate location. You can export that data out. But this gives you that warm fuzzy blanket that just in case if something does happen, you can recover that data back from a known good day and time. And so when you look at how this is from an email security plan standpoint, Barracuda, we have 3 plans. Now, bear in mind, there are inherent discounts for buying into plans, but we do sell all of our items a la carte. But we do have advanced premium, premium plus. The advanced plan is going to include things like your gateway, impersonation protection, incident response, and domain fraud protection. In the premium level, we're going to bring in the Microsoft 365 backup, the Entra ID backup, as well as a data inspector tool that scans OneDrive and SharePoint for PII and malware. And then our Premium Plus layers in cloud archiving for any of your e-discovery compliance purposes and your security awareness training, where you can send out those simulated phishing emails to test your users and training videos and interactive games to help educate your users. So this is what we have from an email security portfolio. And again, these pieces are modular, so you could have just a gateway or just impersonation protection. Just wanted to make sure everybody kind of saw what we have. And now I'm going to pause and I'm going to turn it back over to Chris for our Q&A.
Thank you very much, Dave and Scott. I don't have any questions that have been submitted at this point. So I'll give folks just a moment to do so if they wish. Just a reminder, in the eval, it's an opportunity to ask for any additional resources, one of which is the email threat scan. We can send you that link, and you can sign up for that. Again, there's no charge for any of that, as well as some additional resources that might be helpful to you as you look to tighten up your email security. I don't see any more questions coming in, so I'm going to say thank you very much to our 2 presenters. Also, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll give you back an extra 16 minutes of your afternoon. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you in the future. Thanks so much.
Take care.